All right, welcome to the Thursday call. I have been so excited for this episode for a long time. So I have three mentees here. I was gonna dump a few more in here, and I was like, you know what? This is gonna be way too hard to moderate. So we will do a round two of this in the future. But these are three of the OG mentees. These guys were earlier on the program. We had a lot less build out. So sorry guys, you guys helped me build it to where it is today. But these are three investors who have been really successful, who have really, really, really interesting stories. I want to do a few things here today. We're going to do this kind of panel style. We're going to share stories where everyone's at in their portfolio, where they started. The fun thing is, this is an education program. I'm building out the community as much as I can right now, but at its core, the only goal here is I want to teach you how to buy real estate as efficiently as possible and move you forward so you can start your own business. Everyone's business looks different. Everyone has different experiences after they got through the program. And I really want to push this because this is the most important piece. Everyone who has been in the mentorship program, who has bought real estate, absolutely would have been successful with or without me. Your success is mostly dependent on you. The mentorship did not make these people investors. These are people who are independently awesome. The only goal is, can we remove some unnecessary steps, streamline or cut down on these stupid tax, cut out some of the things you don't know. I know for a fact Caleb's going to share one of the things that we didn't help him cut down the stupid tax on, that I'm now fixing with him retroactively. We get better and better as we go, but I'm so excited to introduce Ethan, Vlad, and Caleb, all past mentees. I know you guys all know Caleb quite well. But these are three people who have interesting businesses who have learned a lot about a lot. And I think it's really important that we share the successes in the group. So this is like a motivational episode for everyone. Depending on some of the stories, it may be a demotivational episode. But guys, welcome to our special edition of the Thursday call. I'm just go one at a time. Ethan, I'm gonna start with you. Ethan, tell everyone a little bit about where you started and what your portfolio looks like today.
Yeah, I'm Ethan. I'm from Nashville. My partner and I, Eddie, right here. Eddie. We're both born and raised Nashville. We grew up side by side, best friends, quit our corporate jobs and wanted to do real estate. Started single family. I bought a house, he bought a condo, and we came across this where you guys are right now. I mean, the whole mentorship program and everything, and just opened our eyes to the multifamily side of things. I joined this mentorship. Eddie joined a flipping mentorship. So we started flipping houses and buying apartments. Our first deal was with Caleb. We came in as some capital partners there to help close that. We did a 24-plex next in Huntsville, and then bought a few more after that, a 5 in North
The
Alabama.
red brick, baby.
Red Brick, the legendary apartment
The one and
complex.
only.
And then now we're working on another 12 in Tennessee.
That is amazing. And we're going to talk more about that 12 because I
Yeah.
saw the celebration. We closed, and it turns out that is still in progress. That's going to be a story we're going to share here. I'm excited for that. Vlad, talk a little bit about your starting point and then where your business is at today, because you've done a lot of about everything that you can do in real estate.
Almost. I'm working on doing everything. I'm Vlad. Hi, guys. I'm an immigrant from Romania. I came to the country about 10 years ago. I was a bartender for 15 years. And before I joined the mentorship a couple of years ago, I bought a fourplex with an FHA loan. I still have that today. After that, I bought a 14-plex seller financed in Rhode Island and ended up selling it in a very, creative way. I got about 300,000 in profit over there that I kept in the property and making 9% interest on it. Truly passive income over there. Now I just bought last week a subject to property in Florida where I moved recently a couple of months ago, and I have another one under contract that's due to close in about a week or so. And I'm thinking about starting wholesaling as well. I want to try everything there is to do in real estate because it's all so much fun and I just like a new challenge. I can't do the same thing twice for some reason. I'm crazy that way.
And in a couple of years, you'll settle back down to only doing multifamily.
Probably because it's the easiest, but I just want to see if there's something that fits my personality better, because that would be the easiest, And I just want to try everything before I before I land on something.
Yeah, and one thing that we'll definitely talk about is how you did prospecting, because different. It's like a hybrid of my version and then a lot of other people's version. But the way that you used VAs to get you the owner meeting was really interesting for that one. So I definitely want to chat about that. And then all of you guys know Caleb. I think he was the last speaker, if I recall, because I was in that one. He was one of the last speakers for the after mentorship community call. I don't even know what you guys named that thing, but that is like my favorite thing happening in the mentorship right now. I love that group.
Yeah, I
You guys
guess
all
do I
know
need to
Caleb.
say? Yeah, do I need to even say anything? I think I'm good.
How many units are you at? How many units are you under contract for?
79 and then 176. So that about sums it up.
So Caleb will be over 200 units if the deal that he's under contract for closes. We don't fall in love with any deal. It's not done until it's done. He is, as Ethan and Eddie are well
That
aware.
is a fact.
So it doesn't count towards the unit count until it closes. But yeah, Caleb's done a lot. Caleb, roughly how much money did you start with when you joined the mentorship?
Grand total of $300.
Okay, so everyone who has more than $300 and is over 18 years old, you have an advantage on this kid, and he's doing quite well. Okay, I want to share some of the stories here. Ethan, I'm going to start with you. Ethan, what is the legendary red brick, and why was this property such a clearly cut turnkey property for you?
It's just a cool story for us in that we had gone through a couple months of the mentorship, just kind of learning all the fundamentals, the basics, and you guys started encouraging us to reach out to brokers, start underwriting deals. And this was, I don't know if you know this, Christian, but this was the first apartment complex, like any kind of multifamily deal that I ever called a broker on, that I ever underwrote, that I ever dealt with or looked at.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
One for one.
Yeah. And so it was, that's how we came across it. It was listed on market. It had been sitting there for like a year, and called up the broker, made a horrible, horrible offer. Just had no idea what I was doing. And what we offered, like, I had the text saved just for the memories. It was like 10% down, 1% interest only for 5 years. And fast forward a year, we ended up closing that deal for 10% down, 1% interest only, in 5-year balloon. So the way that it came back, they rejected the offer obviously up front, and it just sat there for another year or so. And one of Caleb's buddies, Max, was
Not too close anymore.
old ex-buddies. I'm assuming he was just on Craigslist filtering for days on market, and this had been on market for, I mean, forever. And so he called on it, and they were open to getting creative at this point. Caleb hit me up. He's like, "Hey, do you know this?" And we were like, "Yeah, we've looked at it. We've offered." And they ended up accepting the offer. We went under contract, had to significantly retrade that, but ended up closing it. It was a huge, heavy rehab and lift, but we have turned it around. It's 100% occupied and cash flowing great. It's in Huntsville, Alabama.
Hunts Vegas, some might say.
So on that deal, that one. So if we remember if I remember this one correctly, I think it was for this building. Cody's vote was, "This is too big rehab. Don't do this one." And Christian's vote was, "Can you afford not to do this deal? Does this move you forward? And are you going to choose the adventure or not?" You may notice on a lot of these calls, Cody is less excited than I am on deals. And also, he deals with occasionally less headaches than I do. On this deal, final verdict, you've owned it for a while. Are you glad that you closed it?
Yes, I am.
How is the property performing?
It's good. This will be our first month without the interest only, the 1% interest only, lasted a year. So we had our last month. And so now it'll jump to 4.75, and we'll have 4 years of that.
Oh no, 4.5% interest on a when interest rates are closer to 8 than they are 4. You've done well. That's a good negotiation. I think the lesson there too is that was the first deal you called on. It took over a year for that one to come back to you, though. Not everything happens all at once. It happens pretty quick. Like, if anyone thinks back like where you were a year ago, it's not that long. But it can feel like forever when you're in the mentorship making calls, building relationships. That's one that just came back into circulation because it just had sat on market long enough. When some of you are presenting deals where it's like, I offered and they're just not accepting anything. It's like some of these will, in fact, be stuck on market for years. My first seller finance deal was stuck on market for 13 years. Like, it happens. Be patient. Keep getting these in your pipeline. You never know which one comes through. I think it's so cool that was your first one you underwrote, though.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna circle back to you on your 12 plex that closed and then didn't close and then might close again. Vlad, your deal was crazy. Okay, how did you find your deal? Because your approach to owner meetings was unique.
So I started, the way you guys did and just made a bunch of phone calls, and I got discouraged very fast after a few hours of just hearing no, fuck off, all that stuff. I'm sorry for the language. I just forgot it's
That's okay. We'll
recorded.
fix it in post. I'm kidding. We
Thank
won't.
you. All that, rejection. I was like, there's got to be a better way than dealing with this. So I put a buffer between me and, all these sellers that were angry for some reason. So I got a VA from the Philippines, and I had him call and qualify, various buyers, so that everything that made it on my desk that I had to call was people that were at least interested in hearing, what I had to say. So that took out, 90% of people that just closed the phone on. And it worked out for me pretty great. I was able to buy that 14-plex, 6% interest, 30-year, no balloon. A lot of rehab, but there was so much upside. In fact, so much upside that I sold it 8 months later for a profit of a little over $300,000, and there was still an upside. It was cash flowing when I sold it, and there was still 4 units that were vacant. So the new buyer had $6,000 a month extra just by filling the vacant units. So it was a good deal all around for everybody.
And you sold that on a wrap, right?
Yes. So I bought a seller finance. I convinced my seller to transfer the existing note, to the new buyer. And then I added a second lien note at 9% interest of my own for most of the profit on that. And I'm making 30 grand a year without doing anything right now on that deal.
It's not a terrible deal. That's 114. Like, I love how you structured that. I haven't had to use a wrap yet, but I have the 7-plex that I sold in Seattle. Similar deal where I was like, okay, this only works and I can actually get a huge profit if I sell this with the existing terms. And it took about 6 months to convince the seller, like, look, it was one where the seller and I actually didn't get along. First time I've ever had that happen. Only time I've ever had that happen. I'm like, look, we don't like working together. Just re-roll with the new investor who you like better. I disagree with you. You disagree with me. Also, we've had a lot of legal review, and I'm right. Just rewrite the note with someone else. He ended up adding. So I had the interest rate at 3.5%. He just kicked it to 4.5%. So he got a little higher note with the next person. They got 4.5% interest for another. I think it was they extended to 5 years. There are ways to get out of properties really creatively. What you did there was amazing. Like that, seriously, you bought it and then you're like, huh, I seller finance my way in. I'm going to seller finance my way out.
And
really
another
good deal.
really good thing about it is I went to, some of the biggest brokers in the area, and they told me the property is worth between 1.3 and 1.4 million. And I told them, you know what? No. And this way I was able to get 1.57. So it was a difference of between, almost $200,000 and almost $300,000 just because I was able to think outside the box when I sold it.
Price is one thing, terms are everything. One of the things that I really like about Vlad's story, and this was a lesson that I took to the rest of my business. Vlad did the VA things because he didn't like the owner call was his least favorite part and where he was having the most friction. You don't have to be good at every piece of every step that you learn in the mentorship. You can get creative, you can outsource things, you can build a team. Focus on the things that you're the best in the world at, and you move forward a lot faster. If any of you guys have met Vlad is super fun, and he is a blast on the phone. If he's like, okay, I hate doing this thing and it brings me down, but I do want to form relationships with sellers. If I recall correctly, you actually formed a pretty close connection to the seller of that building.
Oh yeah, he invited me to go to Greece to his private island. It's freaking amazing. I can't wait.
Fun story. And now you've ended the adventure, or at least this phase of your adventure. You left the the Northeast, and you are now in Florida.
Yep. Yep.
How are you liking
I mean,
Florida?
it's definitely warmer. I haven't been in here in the summer, so I don't know the humidity part, how I'm gonna handle that. For the most part, bigger market, bigger opportunities, more competition, but it's in Tampa. I'm in Tampa, in the Tampa area. Um, and I'm trying new things here. I'm trying buying properties subject to. I got one from a agent. I got one from a wholesaler. Very different experiences there. And now I want to source my own because I realized that I'm leaving a lot of money on the table between if there's a middleman. Same thing I did last time. I want to cut out the middleman, get a VA again, and start sourcing my own deals.
I love it. Caleb, what possessed you to think that the next move should be 176 units?
Met a guy in my building. Name's Andrew. Just met him randomly. I was going back from the bank and had some papers in my hand, whatever. We started chopping it up. Dude built from 1 to 4,500 units in 5 years. So I'm like, okay, there's got to be something more to this. So took him out to coffee, started talking. Immediately, he's like, you just need to start buying bigger. His first deal was a single family house. He called out an 11-plex. This guy wouldn't sell him the 11-plex. He looked on the CAD, saw the guy had 250 units, and he bought them all as his next deal. And so when I heard that, I'm like, yeah, we need to start thinking bigger. So that's kind of what kicked me in the ass and made me look for bigger deals.
With your experience with so you did an 8-plex, you did 2 10-plexes and 8-plex, a 25 and a 26 before you got to this point. How did things go on the first buildings? Let me rephrase this. Are you glad that you started with smaller buildings before you jumped into 176?
100%. I mean,
Okay.
on deals that are that size, anything can go bankrupt. You can go bankrupt on a duplex if you don't have enough money, but it's a lot easier to overcome problems on smaller deals of that size than an $8.3 million purchase where that is definitely big enough to sink me and there's no amount of income I can make right now to bail me out of my problems.
Is there anything that you learned on the first few deals where you're like, okay, I'm not going to make the same mistake
150
on the larger one? Like, is there a takeaway you got from a?
Yeah, 100, yes, 150%. I didn't raise enough capital. The down payment on this is going to be approximately like around 1.6. I'm looking to raise 2.3, 2.4. So talk about raising enough money. I am going over an extra 700 to 800,000 to make sure I have cushion to complete all CapEx.
Okay, now here's a question that people are gonna. At least this is what I would immediately think on this. It's like, okay, so you're raising a bunch of extra money. Does that change the return of the investor who's putting in the extra money? Why would someone want to hold the extra money outside of the security? Do they get interest on that? How are you structuring this where it makes sense for the investor to hold that extra money in the account for you?
Yeah, basically we're doing, so it's a first money in, first money out structure. I make enough money to live on right now. I'm not a syndicator. I don't take money up front on fees, any of that stuff. So it's basically, hey, first money in, first money out. You put this money as the down payment, we'll have the rest in reserves. We can get through all of our projects. It's mostly a management play with some light touch up, but just in case anything comes up, I'm like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we're going to work on. Immediately after we refinance, all your money gets pulled back out of the deal. Then we just own it as partners. Then it's, they have no money in the deal. We have no money in the deal, and bang, bang.
I love that structure. It's simple. You don't get to do that one if you don't have enough cash flow to live on yet. Like, you don't get to do structures if you haven't reached your first income goal. You did that in what, less than 2 years?
Yeah.
You did it in just a little less than 2 years. You're like, okay, I have what I need to live. And from the looks of it, you have a pretty sweet place.
You always have to say something about that.
Dude, look at the view. That's better than
nice.
the view that you had 6 months ago. That's pretty incredible.
That is better than better view than Stephenville. Yes.
So now you're able to do debt structures that don't pay you for a few years for a higher payout in the future.
Yep.
I love that. I love that. Okay, Ethan.
Wow. Hold on. Can we just say Jake Martin's hating on Dallas in the comments right now? Mr. Stephenville himself. I just had to see that. Get out of here, Jake. Yeah, stop laughing.
Jake. I got to meet Jake at our last event. Jake's phenomenal and actually lives in Stephenville, which is where
he's actually a cowboy.
Yes, he is actually a cowboy. It is fantastic. We got everything but the hat for the last event. Ethan, I saw a post and I was all excited to talk about this today because I was like, this guy just closed the 12. I saw the thing. You and Eddie were celebrating. I saw the signing. I heard this morning that may not have actually closed. This could have been a lie.
Yeah, it was a complete lie. We were very excited as well. The closing was Monday. We signed. We thought we closed. We posted about it, and we're You know, we went to Mexican and celebrated, got good food, and went home. And we got a call at 7:30 that night saying that the seller did not sign. And so we did. I mean, we didn't know what was going on. We called, we talked, and figured out that there were changes to the loan docs that he wanted to make. There was also a contractor that they were trying to track down for a lien waiver for some work that he had just done on the property. And so from the time of then until the next day, when most of that stuff had been sorted out, our investor on that deal found things in the loan docs that he did not agree with. And so since then, it has been a back and forth, just trying to figure out who's gonna give in and if we can close this deal or not.
What are the main sticking points? Like what did he find in there where he's like, I didn't understand this when we originally sent all these docs for review?
Well, it's not that he didn't understand it. I don't know if he overlooked it or just didn't understand the magnitude. It's the prepayment penalty. So the original agreement, what we've been under the understanding from the beginning with the seller, the whole deal was based on the fact that we would not prepay the loan for 15 years. There would be no option to even do it, not even like an absurd prepayment penalty. And that's how we pitched it to the investor. He was good with it. He came in and he was the only investor that we talked to. We put all of our eggs in one basket and took it to the closing table. And that's when, after the day after closing, was when he found out, or I guess realized, that he wasn't good with the no option to prepay. And so now it's just been back and forth on that.
Okay, that makes sense. Man, that must be gosh, that must be frustrating. And the sellers still, you guys are still engaged with the seller. How do they feel about that? Obviously frustrated, but so it's the investor, right, that's holding it up?
Yes.
Okay. So the seller's there to sign, you guys are there to sign, and then it didn't close. How are you how is that relationship feeling?
Strained, if I'm honest. But I mean, we're just kind of working through different options to try to get it closed.
Okay. These things happen. They're stressful. I've gone to one where the seller didn't sign. And a year after suing them for specific performance, I took a $50,000 loss of earnest money to get the other $100,000 back because I needed it. I was like, I'd rather just spend the 100,000 and not go to court. I literally lost money on a deal that we had a right to the earnest money for, because sometimes people get to signing and they don't sign. That's frustrating, man. I hope that works out. How much money is the actual raise?
It is, well, we structured it as kind of a line of credit. So he's allowing us a maximum of 360. We need 240 for the down payment, which the deal is 11 apartments in one house. So the plan is to close with that 240, turn around and sell the house and pay off a big chunk to the investor, and then just use that line of credit for the renovations for a year to 18 months until we can pay them off.
That's super cool. So you have a deed release agreed upon for the house, so that can be removed from the financing.
Yep.
That is really clever. That is a level 2 for creative finance. That's really, really well done. Good negotiations. If anyone knows anyone with $350,000 or 360 who can just replace their skittish investor, give Ethan a call, because that deal, I underwrote that a little bit with you, just a tiny bit. You told me about it. It sounds like a stellar opportunity.
Yeah.
Anyone wants to replace a skittish partner, there's a deal on the table. I'm going to cut to Caleb and then back to Vlad. Caleb, you have had this happen where you had a capital partner bail. You've had two. One was with me. The other one was also with me. We had capital partners bail after earnest money was due. In fact, the day of earnest money being due, who were 100% yes. And we've had capital partners bail.
Yeah, that wasn't even the worst one.
Yeah, talk about the worst one.
Yeah, but 2 days before closing, guys, I mean, I remember exactly where I was. I was on my way back from seeing family in Columbus, Ohio. I was like sitting on the Southwest flight, had just sat down. I get a call, hey, he's like, we won't name names, isn't funding the deal anymore. I'm like, excuse me? What do you mean he's not funding the deal anymore? He was filing bankruptcy, and I was like, at that point, that's what we were under the impression of. It was like, okay. So we had about 2.5 days to raise same thing, about $300,000.
Turns out the investor was on the way to jail. They were, their money was from embezzling. They were they were a prominent public figure, who
40 years to life.
Yeah, who was stealing hundreds of millions of dollars. And turns out, man, some things just work out I am so grateful that they didn't fund the deal. And then
That would sucked. We would have been so many lawsuits.
can you imagine having them as a partner? Like 2
Yeah,
days after you close. Oh, by the way, all the accounts are frozen. And like, I mean, that total blessing that happened the way it did, because there was really no obvious signs. As someone who was very
zero.
published author, and yeah, it turns out had a cocaine and stealing problem. So we learned that the fun way. Caleb, how did we do the actual raise to overcome that? Because we had 2 days to bring in like, what was it $300,000?
Yeah, we called absolutely everybody and anybody we knew. I would say is pretty much the short answer, and got it like what? It was like 1 a.m. in the DFW airport.
Yep.
I think is when it came in. So 10 hours before closing. Didn't have any formal docs drafted whatsoever. There's level of trust. So like, all right, we're good to go. Let's do it. It was pretty much that simple.
This was the conversation. I have a deal. Our partner just backed out, and I need someone to fund it. And they're like, well, I'm like, do you have anyone? This is a hard money lender. They're like, actually, I need a write-off, and it's pretty close to the end of the year. I need to buy something. Tell me about the deal. So I told them about it. And they're like, when do you close? I'm like, well, it's 1 a.m. So we'll close. We're signing at 9:30 a.m. later today. And they're like, okay. So she grabbed her husband. They spoke to us. They're like, hey, okay. We love the deal. I love the way you operate. Can you get a revised operating agreement to us tonight? And so from the car, we drafted a new OA, we signed it, and we closed. And we actually had to record with the original, with the partner of the original investor. We had to get a recording of him stating, I am relinquishing my equity. We're going to go ahead and close the deal, and I am signing over my claim to this LLC retroactively. It was super odd and sloppy, but we closed the deal without a delay. The seller we didn't even have to bring it up to the seller. We closed under the LLC that we said we'd close. We had almost all the docs one should have to do that. We had in writing and verbally recorded that the fixes were going to be made. To date, do you think that one or the 26 is a better deal? Which one's the better?
That one. That is also the deal that got me to Texas, because that was part of the requirement as well from them. I don't know if you remember that. It was like, yeah, we're in. Caleb has to move to Texas. So 2 months later, I got in my car and drove to Texas.
That was the condition. Caleb has to be on site. If Caleb's on site, we'll fund the deal. So Caleb made the ultimate sacrifice and moved to a way better area. Vlad, you've done a lot.
Say, before you ask me the question, I was gonna say there's a really good point to be mentioned here. You guys, were able to get $300,000 in an airport at 1 a.m., which speaks to, if you operate ethically, you only have to do fundraising from private investors, once, if you do it right. And then they can, open up and trust you more and give you more money each time and with less terms, with better terms. It's, it just gets easier and easier as long as, you do things right and you operate ethically. Like a buddy of mine basically gave me a line of credit of $120K on just basically a piece of paper that says, hey, I owe you money. Not tied to any transaction, no, nothing. Just because he borrowed me money in the past and I gave it back. So it really helps to do things ethically all the way, every single time.
Mm-hmm. And it's worth noting, if you guys missed the beginning of this call, Vlad started as an immigrant and a bartender. It's not like we're starting with huge amount of money or like huge qualifications. Caleb started as basically a high school student.
I remember the day Vlad quit his job. I remember him coming on the Zoom and talking about that still. I still remember that day.
Yeah,
I 100% remember that.
Do you know what I actually find interesting here? I noticed a trend here. All four of us. All of us quit our jobs like irresponsibly early.
I didn't even make it to one.
After one deal.
Yeah. Everyone can do this. Your level of commitment can change. And I understand also none of us had kids at the time. I'm about to have a kid, but yep.
Congrats.
Thank you. None of us had kids at the time. So the risk level is a little different. I understand not everyone can just leave their job. The good news is you don't have to. Vlad, how much time per day do you currently dedicate towards finding deals? realistically?
Realistic, couple hours tops. Because when I do find deals, it's worth it. Like I can do one or two deals. I'm very easy. Like I don't need to rule the world. I need to have the time to do whatever I want. If I want to go on vacation, I'll go on vacation tomorrow. If I want to stay there for 3 months, I can stay there for 3 months and I don't care. That's what I was looking for, and that's what I got with this. So I don't want to be the guy that works, 16 hours a day just because I'm an entrepreneur now. I want to get maximum results with the least amount of time. I want, to spend time with my fiance and my dog and just do whatever I want. And that's what I got.
We talk about this stupid tax all the time. It's like when you don't know what you don't know, there's always some expense that comes up in real estate. It can be personal, it can be monetary. But for you, what's been the most expensive lesson so far in the last couple of years?
There have been a few that each cost about the same. For example, not doing proper contracts with contractor. I had to sue a guy for, $6,000 because we didn't have a proper contract. The suit is still going, and I lost that money basically. I don't know if I'll ever win it back just because I didn't put it on paper properly. Pretty much, if you don't do things right from the start, even if it costs more, you're going to end up paying triple, because first you got to pay for it. You do it, you do a shady job of it. And then the second time you have to pay to remove what you just did. And then the third time you have to pay again more to do it right. So just do it right from the first time. Even if it costs more, it's going to pay dividends in the end.
100%.
I love that. That is true too. It is three times. You pay for doing it wrong. You pay to fix the thing,
Yeah.
and then you actually have to pay to get the work done again. Like there's the problem, there's the fix, and then it's like, oh, I still have to do the original thing. It's expensive. It's really
Very
expensive.
It's expensive to be cheap, so don't be cheap.
Yes. Ethan, how about you? Highest stupid tax
Is
thus
Ethan
far.
here?
He
Ethan
may have
walked out of
left
the room.
He may have left the camera.
Maybe
Ethan,
Eddie.
get
He'll be
back
back.
here. Ethan. Ethan.
What if they're on the phone, dude?
We're
What if
running
they're
an
on the phone
episode. No, we'll grab we'll pick Ethan when he's back. He's probably raising his new capital right now.
No good deal.
One of you are on the phone with him. Be like, I got 360. Let's go. Caleb, what is your highest the stupid tax, the not knowing what you didn't know? What's been the highest cost lesson that you've learned that we can all avoid?
I mean, I talk about it a lot, right? It was not raising enough capital up front. And then in addition to that, it's making sure you're strategic who you partner with. Lost 5 high school best friends from it. So just be careful on who you partner with. Don't partner just to partner as an accountability partner. If you want to be accountability partners, that's fine. Don't do a deal together. If you guys don't make sense as partners, please just don't go down that path.
Yeah, because you had your first few deals, you were able to close them, but there were a lot of overall partners. Like there's just a lot of parties.
Yep, and that's correcting those mistakes right now. And especially as a core business partner, like I'm very honest, I worked with Chuck for a few years. I've known him for 7 years, 4 years before that. So it was awesome. We're going to do this together. Sweet. Make sure their goals are aligned with yours. If your goal is to go take over the world and their goal is to not work, that's not going to work out. So make sure incentives are aligned. Make sure partnerships make sense is the biggest piece of advice I can offer.
That's why Caleb and I are friends, but we never did a deal together.
No, I'll just keep teasing him every time I see him at PCon every year.
How does I have opinions on subject too and callable notes. I'm very public about this, so we know this isn't we're not the same thing. Vlad loves doing I want to try a little bit of everything, which I understand. It's not me, but I get it. For you, Vlad,
yeah,
what is your game plan for if you buy a few deals subject to and the note actually does get called? What is the plan and how are you protecting against that?
So here's how I buy them to avoid the note being called.
Okay.
I buy them with a land trust. I have my attorney set up a land trust. I have 99% ownership of that land trust. I'm the beneficiary 99%. The seller is beneficiary 1% of the land trust. So they're still an owner in the property. They still have an equity interest. And they sign a power of attorney to me. Actually, not to me, to my lawyer. The lawyer is the trustee, right? So they sign a power of attorney to the trustee of the land trust so that we can make decisions on the property without having to involve them. If we have an insurance claim, for example, the lawyer can call in and do that insurance claim, and we don't have to involve the seller, right? So that, in the eyes of any bank, looks like the owner of the property, the seller, is just doing estate planning, and there's no reason for them to suspect otherwise and call a loan due. So it doesn't look like a sale, it just looks like estate planning.
That is very interesting. That's a clever way to do it. And that makes some sense because so they technically haven't sold all of the interest.
Yep.
They've given the control and almost all of the interest.
Yep.
It's very clever. That's very clever. If you're going to do them, structure them right. To me, I think it's too many steps for too little real estate, but you're having fun doing this and it's moving you forward, right?
It really depends on the deal. And the only reason I'm buying these subject to and not focusing on multifamily is when I see a good deal, I believe that, the market, as soon as interest rates are going to start dropping, whether it's in a year or 2 years, the market's going to have another, big bump in prices. So I want to buy as many properties as I can, subject to at under 4% interest rate. Everything that I bought so far is 3 point something. And then whenever, interest rates drop to 5, the price will have exploded by then. So I can easily refinance and keep a bunch of properties that in the meantime get paid down. I get tax benefits. I'm going to do, cost segregation studies on everything to not pay any taxes on anything. So I'm rounding up my portfolio and my liabilities to make sure that, the long-term goal is in place.
Perfect. And here's what I'm hearing, and this is what I was hoping to hear. You've answered the question, how am I going to buy it and how am I never going to lose it? And if you can hold real estate long enough, you will become very, very wealthy. You have to have a solid plan to hold it. You're picking up assets that pay you every month on long-term fixed rate debt. You're protecting yourself in every way you can. These strategies make sense to me. All right, Ethan, welcome back.
Thank you. I had a call from the investor.
I figured you might. I was like, he's probably figuring out his money right now. Do you own it now?
No.
Did he sign?
No, he did not. We're still moving sideways here.
Okay. So yeah, someone on this call fund Ethan's deal. We'll set up a GoFundMe link below.
Yeah.
Ethan, thus far, highest stupid tax, the most expensive lesson that you've had to learn thus far.
Don't trust.
Oh, are we saying this publicly now?
June 12th.
Okay.
I've been
out of
telling people
respect for
based on
you,
your
I haven't
story.
told this story. Okay, this is one of my favorite stories from the mentorship.
So we can't post this till June 12th. We can post this after June 12th.
Yeah.
We'll edit this piece. We'll just blank out their name. Okay, Ethan, talk to me. What happened with
units in Murfreesboro, Tennessee? We were under contract and was filming this show called Going Across Different Cities. I'll try to keep this as short as I can, I promise.
That's a good story.
He came to he came to Nashville. A broker friend hooked us up and got us an interview. We happened to be working on this deal while he was in town, and so we got onto the show. It was us and a bunch of other deals in Nashville. It was the premise of the show was to pitch the deal that you're working on, and he would pick one to fund. So I cannot confirm or deny if we won the show. Stay tuned to find out June 12th. But if we hypothetically did win the show, there might have been a case of being put up against the wall last minute, and the investor who we had backed out the day before closing, and we lost 30 grand. So that may or may not.
All hypothetical.
There may have been a contract that said that only.
Yeah, we were tied to one investor. Couldn't talk to other people about it. The hypothetical investor changed the deal the day before. We got his request done, which seemed impossible at the time, and then they proceeded to tell us it was still not good enough, changed it again, and backed out the day before closing. And so through attorney fees, due diligence costs, everything like that, we lost $30K. The seller tried to sue us for $50K. Somebody else did the deal like 2 weeks later. and here we are. But I mean, that's
this may or may not have happened. May or may not have happened.
It could have been a dream that I had.
Hypothetically, was there change? I want you to switch the awesome seller financing to a less awesome option, and I want the broker to waive their fees completely, and you got that done?
It was, they wanted the broker fees completely cut out. They wanted the monthly payments dropped by $3,000, and we did get it done. And then it
potentially could have gotten it done if
but like happened. Like I said, this could have all been a dream. I'm not sure yet.
So he gave you Mission Impossible, and you were Tom Cruise, and he still backed up.
Yes.
In theory.
Stay
tuned. Yeah. June. You said June 12th?
That's when I don't know which episode we're going to be on, but that's when the first one comes out.
Okay, stay tuned. June 12th to find out what happens to the mentees of Multifamily Strategy.
Yeah.
No, that's a lesson, and I believe I have this in the course. Don't partner with people who can afford to bury you. I do believe that is video in there. I did vote that Ethan doesn't do this one with Grant. I do remember having this conversation.
But could he afford not to do it is the question.
See, that's what I said about the 24, and I think that was good advice then.
It would have been great if it worked out for Ethan. You know, marketing-wise, it would have been phenomenal.
I feel like marketing-wise, it might be even better now.
I actually think it may be. Once it's public.
Yeah.
When are you allowed to talk?
I would love to post some clips of this video because this has been a really fun one. I will redact a certain section of this, which means I actually have to do editing. I will not get you or I sued, Ethan, by posting this early.
You.
Caleb, you had a thought?
I was just saying, yeah, make sure we edit that part out.
Yep.
Also my colorful language.
I will say that Caleb and Christian and Cody and there are a testament that you can do this stuff without money. But at the same time, having a little reserve, having some money when you're getting started helps just tremendously. You're going to have due diligence costs. You're going to need inspections. You have to use attorneys for contracts. You can minimize.
You found out about that also.
The hard way. I mean, this is tuition costs right here. But I mean, having a set reserve or having some kind of money capital in the beginning is great. I mean, like I said, Caleb had $300 and got the job done, but I think you can probably agree it would have been a lot easier and a lot smoother if you had some money up front.
It's so much easier. I mean, now it's like being able to play when you have like a little, like not rich by any means, but being able to play some cash now and actually I can spot X when it comes up or X cost. Oh, we can do EMD, whatever. It's like makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
Diego now.
Did you have to pass on deals for not having money for earnest money?
There was one very early on, Christian. I don't know if you remember that broker in Galveston way early on. He blew that up. That was a 7-unit in Galveston, Texas. One of my first property 3 months into the mentorship. Blew up, wanted POF and all that stuff. And it's like
proof of funds.
I mean, yeah, you can do that. And it's like obviously we could have leveraged it from other people, but that deal blew up because of that. That was could have had 7 units 3 months, 6 months earlier than my 10 units. So
if you have no money and no real estate, it will in fact be harder to buy real estate. And if you have to borrow money, that is an added cost. Money is not free. So there are deals that you will not be able to do that someone who has more cash than you could knock out. That is the hard part of this game. What I wanted to illustrate here is everyone on this call did not start with a ton of money. In fact, none of our most successful mentees, I'm going to have a few other ones on, one of our most successful mentees of all time, Logan Pritchett, I'm going to have him speak to you guys as well. He had some horrible life events happen and had no money and had he was graduating college. He had no plan, no money, no momentum, no help. And he built a huge portfolio. And I think he just closed the deal yesterday.
I think so.
Yeah. Incredible stories. The most successful
best story I've ever heard.
Yeah, same. I'm really excited to have him share. I won't spoil it for everyone. With Logan, Caleb, Brad, Ethan, Christian, Cody, none of us started with any money. It is way harder to do this game without any money, and every single most successful person out of this mentorship has built it without money, and everyone will agree it is freaking hard. Glad, how easy was it to land your first deal?
First one is always the hardest, but like I said, you don't need money as long as you have the grit, the determination, and you just take a step. Like take a step, put one foot in front of the other. I know I sound very cliche right now, but you can learn for years and years, and I did that. Like I studied every single podcast. I got into mentorships. I got into everything. I read books. I got into everything except put an offer on a deal. And as long as you don't put an offer on a deal and you're not willing to actually start and not just learn about real estate, you cannot be a real estate investor. You cannot buy something by reading about it.
That's my favorite thing because I spent too long doing that. I have all these books behind me. I learned almost everything by being in the field, and that is how we learn. Is you do. If you want to be a real estate investor, go invest in real estate. I'm all about multifamily, but if you find a single family house and it's like, hey, this gets me started, buy the darn deal. It's a good deal. And then find something to buy bigger. Ethan, what was your starting point? Like, I know you'd mentioned you bought a house first, Eddie bought a condo first. What was your starting point? Like, where were you at your career, cash wise? What did it look like for you?
For my first, like for the house?
Yeah, just like when you started investing, what was your financial position?
I was in college working an internship, and I saved up 12 grand from all these side hustles that Eddie and I used to do back in the summers, the internships that I have worked. I house hacked that first single family and had the 12 grand for the down payment. And like halfway through the contract, I was like, they told me I needed money for closing costs. I was like, what are closing costs? And so I had to figure that out, but I had some saved up, and that's what I mean is like a little bit of money helps for sure, because I wouldn't have that house, which now pays me like $500 a month for my living expenses that I don't have to stress about how I'm going to pay for gas. But yeah, that's where I started. Just had 12 grand, bought the house, and went from there. But I mean, there was a point where there was nothing. We just saved up. We were flipping couches. We were doing yard work. We were doing anything to make a buck, and then just jumped into it.
That's amazing. Let me ask one more question, and then we'll go a little bit over if that's okay with you guys. I want to open up questions to everyone else.
Yeah.
Last question I have. It's fine to start without reserves. It's much better to get started than it is to wait to have the perfect reserves, the perfect legal structure. Done is better than perfect because you will move forward astronomically faster. That being said, once you are established, what does everyone think the correct amount of reserves is? Vlad, I'm going to start with you. How much reserve is enough for a project?
That's a very nuanced question. It depends on the project. Because, for example, on my first deal, and this is a good thing, don't sleep on bank debt. It's a good thing to use for a first deal. I put $14,000 down on a fourplex, that was worth 430,000, if I'm remembering correctly. And I had to put a bunch into renovations, but it really depends project by project. The good thing about starting with agency debt is that if you're inexperienced, they kind of vet the deal for you. Like the bank is not going to loan on a fourplex that loses you money. You're going to have a second set of eyes on that. Especially if you're inexperienced, that's a major advantage.
Absolutely agree.
The correct amount is it really depends, project by project, but you got to have an idea of what it costs to buy it, what it costs to maintain it for a few months at least. If you have renovations to do, what it costs. Get quotes, get 3 quotes, don't get 1 quote from contractors for all the work that's necessary, and probably get 10% extra on top of that, because it's never going to be that. It's always going to be more.
Caleb, what do you think? How much? Because it's something you've shared many times, is like not raising enough capital on the front end to get all the way through the project is something that you're like, okay, I'm never doing that again. I always raise reserves. How do you determine how much reserve is required for the project that you're doing?
I mean, it depends, like, obviously, on the state of the asset, right? If you're buying a Class A apartment complex that was built 30 days ago, your reserves are going to be a lot smaller than if you're buying 176 units built in 1972. It depends on the project, depends on the scope of the project. I have one roof I need to replace on this coming project, so I'm already thinking ahead for that. Yeah, if you're buying a super stable asset that already has a bunch of capex dumped into it, awesome. You're going to raise less. If you're buying something where you're doing the capex, it's going to be more. I think Christian, you could probably agree with this. As far as like liquidity and reserves go compared to assets, I don't know if I'll ever be in the right place with is that as far as that goes. People are like, oh, you need to have X amount of reserves for X amount of units is like a rule of thumb. I don't think I'll ever be at that place, at least for not a substantial amount of time, even though I'd like to be. But when you're going to start with no money, it turns out you don't have a lot of money.
Yeah, it takes a while to have some cash. And oftentimes we choose to expand rather than get liquid. There's been a point for I think most of us where it's like I could do less expansion and I could just live on this and I could be fairly wealthy. Or we can push forward to the next level. And I think for a lot of us who have the willpower to get to one level and then the next level, progression is usually the choice that we make. Oh, yeah, cash is usually a premium asset, and it takes a second to have that one. If you start with no money, you usually build up the cash flow first, then your equity starts to grow over time, then the liquidity pool fills in last. That is typically what it looks like. Ethan, how about you? You've done some heavy reno projects, and you flipped junked out houses. You took on a very rough 24 unit. What are your thoughts on the adequate reserve raise for projects?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a great answer, but it just depends. It's everything that Vlad and Caleb said. It just depends on the asset. It depends on the person, the risk tolerance of your investor. In my opinion, Eddie and I would rather slightly overraise than slightly underraise. At the end of this year one with the red brick apartments, we have 100 grand in the bank account, which, I mean, you could say it's too much. We could have raised less, but the return for the investors is not significant enough to justify not having that extra capital. I mean, now we have the option we didn't pay investors for the full first year. We're about to make a big payout. We have the option do we want to paint the buildings? Do we want to repave the parking lot? But having that has made the experience so much better than having to sweat and run around and like, how the hell are we going to turn this unit and lease it back up? We don't have any money in the bank account.
And I've been there on 2 buildings. First one I bought, that's how we bought wrong. We raised what we needed to close the deal. And then we're like, we'll figure out the renovations as we go. We just need the opportunity. That took an extra 2 years to get through the project because I'm always waiting for cash flow to come in to renovate the next space. That was a lesson that you guys learned early. You guys did raise too much capital, and I'm glad you did. That's the structure that Kayla and I talked about. It's like, okay, let's raise significantly more than we think we need. And then at the end of year one, if there's too much excess, we'll just distribute a large amount of it back to the investor. It's like, we would rather start liquid, get our legs underneath us, find the projects, the things that we don't know about the building. When all the unknowns or most of them are gone, we can drop that reserve, but let's just over reserve. Find deals where you can afford to do that. All right, let's go dive into some questions here. Dylan, you've had your hand up since the beginning. Go, my friend.
Vlad, so VA calling, what were you doing with your time instead of calling then before you got your first deal?
Just going on market and underwriting stuff on market. After a couple of days, you'll find that the VA, if they're doing their job right, they're going to put 1 to 2 calls on your schedule for the next day. So they start to add up and you start to do follow-up calls. After a week or so, let's say 2 weeks, your schedule gets pretty packed with follow-up phone calls because, they're going to call hundreds of people a day, but they're going to get 1 to 2 on your schedule to follow up. And that can take, 30 minutes, an hour, and they add up.
Okay, so what do you think? You mentioned to the VA, you were telling them asking if they want to sell the property. My relationship with the owners now is not asking to sell. It's just like, hey, I have some money, but I tell them I don't have enough money to buy this. I just want to learn, how did you do it? Do you think that's something you should do with the VA, or you like your idea?
Probably not with a VA. If you do it personally, like if you make the calls yourself, that's a good strategy. Cody has shown you guys that works. But with a VA, now you have a company, right? Now it's a business. You can't have an employee call and say, hey, I don't have money to buy this. If you have an employee, a partner, somebody that makes the calls, when they put the seller on your schedule to make the follow-up call, they're qualifying you as somebody with authority, somebody that can close the deal, somebody that can make an offer. So you are automatically, when you make the second call, you are in a position of power. Like you are ready to close that deal, right? So you can't have a VA call in and say, hey, my partner and I are broke, and let me get you talking to my partner.
Yeah. If you're doing the mass marketing strategies, and you can still turn these into a relationship, nothing replaces having a authentic relationship yourself with a seller. We've all met with sellers we've built great relationships from, but if you're doing marketing, you need to be really direct in what you're marketing for. So if you're doing a strategy that I don't utilize, but I have friends who do, mailers, you're going to send thousands and thousands of handwritten mailers. You can be personal, but it's very much, it's really clear. I am mailing you because I am ready, able, and willing to buy the property. And then you can get onto it. You can get phone calls from that. If you have the VA method, they're prepping for, hey, this is someone who could invest in your deal. And when you call, you can tactfully share those pieces. Like, yes, I would love to take this out. And when they propose something, it's like, okay, I'm moving money around right now, which is true. We may have to get a little creative on this, but this is what I think the deal would look like. And this is how it worked for me. But you're starting that with momentum. The marketing things is much closer to the broker script, where you start with a transaction and you end with a relationship. Whereas the direct to owner is you start with a relationship and it will eventually lead to some transaction somewhere. They're two totally different mindsets, but marketing follows the broker scripting mindset, more or less.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. Sorry, just had a quick follow-up. I'm in Vlad's shoes. I don't really enjoy cold calling too much anymore, probably because I was doing it like 5 hours a day. But
Yes.
I still so I'm kind of like trying to weigh out my options. $4 an hour for VA, but not have all the relationships, or have the relationships, I guess.
Yeah.
The
And
difference is it's a blunt tool. It's not a
Yeah.
precision instrument. So if you use a VA, literally you're targeting everybody. It's numbers. It's a numbers game. You can, like Christian said, you can build relationships afterwards. First phone call, second phone call, third phone call, because there's going to be follow-ups. But initially, it's literally throwing a rock in the ocean and see what happens. It's literally a numbers game.
What do you think about having a VA that calls and asks if they could sell a property, and then they answer and are like, yeah, this guy's interested or this guy's not interested, but it's the right person. And then you could call them back afterward knowing it's the right person and build a relationship with some like knowledge of about them beforehand. Perhaps,
That's what I was doing. The VA
Oh.
would put on my schedule people that were at least interested in hearing an offer. If they said no, I'm not selling, then bye. But
Okay.
if they asked, what's your offer? I would still have a conversation with them, even if I knew they were just
Mhm.
waiting to hear a number so they can end the conversation. But I would still call those people.
So you didn't have a relationship or follow up with them if they weren't interested in selling?
No.
Okay.
Just
Thank you.
like I said, it's a blunt tool. It's not a precision instrument.
Mhm.
It's a numbers game. You got to make as many calls as you can with this strategy, because you're not building a relationship from the get-go. You're not trying to nurture anything. You're just
Mhm.
looking for somebody that kind of wants to sell. And at that point, you can start building something.
All right. Thank you.
You're still muted.
I haven't done that before. Sorry about that.
No, all good.
It's because I lowered my hand, my brain auto-tuned to click once. So quick question for all three of you guys. From the point that you started out to where you are today, your living expenses that you have to spend on housing, food, transportation, clothes, whatever, where did those roughly come from, like up to this point? You don't have to give me, like whatever you've been living off of, because it's probably different for everybody. But I mean, most of y'all are still scaling pretty rapidly. No one's driving around the Lambos yet. So just kind of curious, like, did it come from, wholesale fees? Did it come from equity that you pulled out somewhere? If you structure a deal with a 5-year buyout and you're not taking any equity yourself, where does your other income come from? Just that kind of situation. So pretty broad, just kind of answer it how you want.
Ethan first.
Me first.
Yes.
When I came up from Huntsville, I still had that house down there that, like I said, house hacked and was paying me a little bit. So that covered food and gas, which was pretty much my only expenses. I moved back in with my parents, so I didn't have that. And then once something would, in the beginning, Eddie and I were still flipping couches, and that was our hustle. That's where we got our active income from, and what we could use to eat, survive, and until we did a couple deals and made more money.
Caleb?
Still, my big thing is the sales company I run, Dago Sales. Pretty much that's where I live off. I don't take money out of my properties yet. I just put everything back into them. So, I mean, when I got started, it was DoorDash. I was negative every single month because I'd spend my DoorDash money, and then Christian and Cody's fees would come up, and that would always bounce. And so then I had to go make more money to pay them back afterwards. Yeah,
it used to be a monthly subscription. I got rid of that. I was like, let's just.
Well, it was also the program used to be a lot worse than it used to be, right? Like
I thought it was pretty good.
Course. We had like one Zoom call a month, dude.
So we used to do weekly Zooms. However, not everyone would make them. Here's the evolution of the mentorship.
It was bi-weekly Zooms.
Bi-weekly Zooms. A much less expensive. We'd meet every other week. Here's what we found. People would stay stuck on the same thing every week. Like we'd hop on calls and it would be the same thing every week. And so we started doing groups, like we did like regional groups, and some people started buying stuff, and some people would just be in a group that was stuck. When we made the national group call, that's where stuff started rolling for people, and there's actually community built. And so it was a lot of learning. Caleb, and this is what I said in the beginning, I'll say it again. Everyone who's been successful would have been successful whether they met us or not. The hope is that we share something on the calls where you're like, this is going to save me hundreds of thousands of dollars of legal. Or, oh my gosh, this opened my mind to a deal that I would not have thought of. I bought bigger, I bought better, I structured something, I avoided a lawsuit. That is what a mentorship is for. Caleb, I'm glad that you're as successful as you were. Caleb was my third person in the mentorship group ever. And he took it pretty much all the way. But yes, it was much worse originally because we were learning how to do it. A few years in, I hope you guys are having a easier time with more knowledge than Mr. Hummel had.
And there's Vlad going last.
Yeah, Vlad, same question to you.
Vlad going last. I'm actually still renting. I have yet to live in a property that I own or in an apartment that I own. And also there's a deal that was my first kind of real estate deal that I forgot to mention about. I'm renting 2 apartments on Martha's Vineyard and doing a rental arbitrage, renting them by the room. And I'm getting about $1,200 in profit every month from that. And I put that towards my living expenses. And then with the interest that I'm getting on the 14-plex that I sold, that more than covers anything that I can spend in a month. And then everything else is, play money.
Love it.
You got to get creative and don't live beyond your means, know where you are in your journey. If you can't, buy it cash comfortably, don't buy it. Don't put it on a card ever.
My wife and I still share a car. I still haven't, I got rid of a car so that I'd have more. I did earnest money by selling a car. And then I was like, yeah, we can do one car. When I retired from teaching.
I had 18 units and I was living in a 3-bedroom apartment with my fiance in one of the bedrooms and had 2 neighbors, tenants. Yeah. So as long as you can live for a little bit beyond, underneath, under your means. I'm sorry, I don't know the expression, but as long as you can leave, like others won't, then what was the expression? You can live how others can't afterwards. Something like that. I'm butchering it, but that's the gist.
It's the effort that counts.
Yeah. If you can live like I've spent my entire business career in a 1,300 square foot house. I have a beautiful backyard. I have a couple of amenities. I have an awesome sauna. I have an awesome hot tub. So I have some things that I've allowed myself, but for the most part, none of us are people driving around in the boat, the Lambo, the crazy, ridiculous super house. We waited to build our business first. And I think that's really important. I know a lot of people, because I live in Seattle area, so there's a lot of Amazon, Microsoft employees. A lot of them are making $500,000 a year. They're broke because their income just goes up and up and up. They buy the lake house, they get the big boat, and they spend all of the money. Money will not solve your problems if you just spend it all the time. The habits that go into your business of, hey, we're starting with profit. If you carry that into your personal life, you're going to go a lot farther. That is actually fantastic advice.
And it's so funny if you make it a game, like that really helps not get the lifestyle creep. If you make it a game to if you need something, if you want to move to a bigger house, figure out how you can have your portfolio pay for it, or how you can structure that deal. For example, I want to move. I'm gonna move in a couple of weeks into my first home that I own.
Yeah.
But there's a garage over there that I'm gonna turn into a 1-bedroom apartment, and I'm gonna have that pay for 70% of my mortgage. So that's the way I'm gonna do it. If you make it a game and really try to have your assets pay for themselves or for your lifestyle, then it's easy and it's
Perfect.
phenomenal.
Let's take a couple more questions, then we'll wrap. Thank you guys for giving us the extra time, by the way. This means a lot to me. I'm having a lot of fun with this, so thank you. There's a question in the chat here. How do you guys normally pay yourselves when you have obligations to partners? Ethan, how do you pay yourself when you have debts? You're trying to pay off investors, get them their return. How are you negotiating that?
We have not paid ourselves. Especially from the apartments, we leave everything in the apartments. We have investors on the Huntsville deal who, like I said, we're about to make our first payout, which we haven't even talked about yet if we're going to pay ourselves. But the 5-plex that we own ourselves, haven't paid ourselves. It's just stayed in there. But the money, we don't really need anything right now. We have the cushion to live off of that came from the couches. It came from Eddie started a business during COVID and gave us a big reserve up front, and we've just had that. We haven't been paid.
And yeah, I'm thinking about it on my end. I've mostly lived off the property management salary. I pay myself from some of the buildings, but I lived off of one large cash out refi early on a deal. Didn't pay ourselves any cash flow for the first year. Cody and I both took a couple $100,000 payout, and that is more than enough for me to live for years. And so that's been the reserve. I did pay myself a minimal salary by minimal, I mean I pay myself $30,000 a year out of property management, 36,000, 3,000 a month. We took one cash out event from our portfolio after we bought out partners, and I pay myself basically nothing. That's how I did it. Caleb started a company, Dago Sales, earned income.
Yeah, but I mean, same thing out of that company. I haven't taken anything out of any of my companies to use personally since last August. Ethan talked about building a nest egg. I just built the nest egg and didn't spend it. Obviously, I live in a nicer place now. I mean, I drive a beat up car. Not investing in all this fancy stuff that all these other people are doing. It's like, I just don't really care. It's same thing, just living on a nest egg I've had for a while. Eventually take some more money out, but not out here trying to buy the Lamborghinis or any of that stuff.
Vlad, how about you?
I don't have partners, so that's not an issue for me at this
all
moment. I was able to do this without partners. It was a lot harder because there's no sounding board. There's nobody to tell me when I'm doing something very stupid. But there's also benefits. I don't have to think about when I take money. There's other ways, other people that I have to pay first and all that stuff. All my investors have been purely interest payments, and that's easy. I pay my interest and then everything else is me.
I love it. Mason, you have a question.
Yeah, so to piggyback actually up the question you guys just answered, because that was my question. When do you know you're ready to start paying yourselves from your properties? Because you live off of your active income. How do you know when you're ready to live off the real estate income?
For
I'll
me,
lead off on that.
oh yeah, go for it. No. This is your call.
Yeah,
For
go
me,
ahead,
yeah, it's
Caleb.
kinda-
You got it, man.
Shut up, Ethan. I hate you. No, I'm kidding. It kind of just becomes like, I think it aligns a lot with your goals. It's like, what are your goals? It's like, for me, I want to build something huge, and if I could delay that gratification enough while I keep building something huge. I mean, we touched on expansion versus liquidity. I could have had more liquidity by now if I would have just kind of slowed down. That's just not the goal. The goal is to build something a lot bigger than where I'm at now. So it's not really at the top of my mind to pay myself for real estate at the second. I mean, in 5 years, I'll probably look up and be like, oh crap, this is nice. But at this very second, it's just not at the top of my priority list whatsoever.
Yeah, that's the same thing I was going to say, is we have no intention to pay ourselves anytime soon. I mean, like I said, we have all the basics covered. We can eat a good Mexican meal every once in a while.
There's PSA, there's no good Mexican food anywhere in Tennessee or Alabama.
Yeah.
Let's just start there.
No idea what you're talking about. We really, we're on the same page. What Caleb just said, we want to build a huge business. We want to scale as fast as possible, so we don't have to pay ourselves anytime soon.
See, I'm different than these guys. Actually, do pay myself, but I make sure every single one of my deals can sustain itself, so that, whenever I do a deal, I don't need to, save money and not and worry about, going on a vacation or whatever. I know the deal is going to sustain itself, and it's just going to increase my active income. So I use my income freely, for whatever I need, and enjoying life along the way. I don't go crazy, like don't think I'm flying first class and everything. I just basic stuff, basic needs. As long as you do the deals right, if you're of this mentality, you don't want to take over the world, you just want to have fun along the way, then do your deals right, and it can work.
Matthew.
Yeah, how's it going, y'all?
Yo.
So I kind of got two questions. The one is like a personal question, sort of like just a belief question. But yeah, so my question, the main one is just like with earnest money. How do you guys source that earnest money, like right out the
Credit card.
Yeah, let's do a credit card. That is not a best practice. That is what he did.
Dang, that's crazy.
Just
Vlad,
open
how
the
about
credit
you?
card and put all my credit, because it has an 18-month 0% interest. I have all my credit cards from the same company, so I transferred all of my available credit to this one card. So now I can do a major rehab. I have like 50K of zero interest money for 18 months, which is
That's the way to do it, dude.
yeah.
I have that is not a best practice. Also, I've done like $180,000 of zero interest credit cards. The real estate has to pay them off. There are principles to this. If you get there, and I've had one where we got to the end of the project and I was like, no, it's actually better to borrow at 18% for a few months. Now if you have 18 months, but you borrow with interest for 6 months, you still borrowed at very low interest, even at 18% interest. You extend that an extra 6 months, but you got that money for 2 years. You have to be able to do the math on those. People get caught where a project does not go the way they think, and they have bonus 18 interest or sometimes 24% interest debt on top of their stuff. You have to be. It is not a best practice. Avoid it if you can. But we have two for credit cards and one for I'll occasionally use a credit card. Ethan, how about you?
We had enough for EMD. We structured it as it was $500 at the beginning of due diligence and 50 grand at the end. And by the time that it was that whole mess where contracts were shifting, we ended up we didn't have the money to put for earnest money, and contracts were being changed. Nothing was ever put into the escrow for earnest money. That almost got us sued. Also not a best practice, fulfilling your contractual obligations.
So far the options are get a credit card or just don't pay it.
To be fair, when I say use credit cards, I also have a contingency plan for that, because I have a balloon payment of $100,000 coming to me next year. So I know well before my credit card is gonna go on, 20% interest, I will have the money coming in to pay for it, push comes to shove. So have a contingency plan, and then you can
Go back to Romania as the contingency.
That is not the contingency. We've let Caleb on the call too long. It goes too long. What happens every time?
That's why we
Okay.
like him, though.
I'm putting that boy on mute.
The short king has spoken.
No, Caleb, I don't want to do editing. Don't make me edit. I am already editing Ethan's section. Okay, Matt, you had one more question, and then I have to hop to another meeting in 5 minutes. So we'll wrap. Dylan, I'll try to squeeze you in if I can. Matthew, ask your question, and then Dylan, ask yours if we can.
Do you guys, since all of your guys' expenses are already taken care of, essentially like kind of retired in a way, do you guys believe in 401ks or like retirement plans?
Oh no.
Hell no.
We sold that shit in the beginning.
I sold that shit in the beginning.
Yeah, no way in hell.
Okay.
I killed the Roth. I killed the 401k. I've been building them up for 8 years. I paid all the penalties to exit them.
Yeah.
I cashed out $43,000. At $43,000, we did the math on this actually super recently. That $43,000 is worth $390,000 over the course of 3 deals where I've moved that around. That is 4 years. We multiplied it many, many, many times. 401k is all of us. I think everyone in the mentorship. I'd be surprised if we have anyone on this call that doesn't fit this description. We're interested in real estate because we want to have control of our finances. I don't feel like you have that in a 401k. You have
Absolutely.
some influence, but you do not have control. And that's huge. Okay, that's unanimous. That was an easy question. Everyone, hate them.
As long as you know how to make more than the 401k
Then
gives
you're
you,
gold.
if you can get more on your money, then why would you get less?
That's kind of what I've been thinking. Just like obviously, the average person isn't an investor, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, you're crazy for doing that."
You would
But
be
Well,
stupid though if you did
Yeah.
not, if you have a 401k match from your employer to not match that amount, because you can match that, vest it, and then pull it out with a penalty that will be much less than the match that your employer gave. If anyone has one of the things where it's like, hey, you put in the first 4% of your income and we'll match it, take that match, do the whole vesting schedule. And whenever you leave that job, one, you have a side account. So if you didn't make it as far as you wanted in real estate, it's there. It's better than not saving the money. Two, you can sell it, take the penalties, and you actually made quite a bit more. So if you have a company plan where they'll match you, always max that, period. Just know I'm maxing this so I can sell this later and go buy a property.
Genius. I like that pro tip. Thank you guys.
Yeah. Okay, Dylan, take us home.
Yeah, thank you. My question is rehabs. Whenever you guys were first starting, I mean, how did you guys manage people? I'm 18 right now. I know Caleb was young. Ethan, you were probably young too. I don't know how old you are. And I don't know anything about Vlad.
Vlad's 55.
Yeah, but I assumed he was older coming from Romania 10 years ago. But how did you guys manage people being young and, things like that?
1.5
dealing
minutes.
with
Everyone has 30
clothes.
seconds. Here we go. Ethan, fire.
I got an Eddie. I suck at managing people. I'm too nice. Eddie is my better half who manages everybody and can get shit done.
There we go. Delegate to the mean person. By the way, that's me in the partnership. I can run the humans. Be kind, but not nice. That is something that I put in all companies. Niceness will kill you. Kindness is great. Caleb.
I don't possess either niceness or kindness. I'm just a jerk to contractors. No, I'm kidding. Just kind of staying on top of them. I'm a follow-up freak. I just follow up on everything all the time. So it's just constant. Hey, how's this going? How's this going? How's this going? Like, I'm probably super annoying, but I've kind of done it.
Is that like text, call person?
Everything.
Oh, yeah, all of it. You need to stay on contractors. Vlad,
What's
your
up?
experience?
What's up?
Initially, I did everything by myself. I slept on the floors of my renovations on an inflatable bed. I flew my dad in from Romania to help me. I hired my friends from the restaurant. It is not ideal, but when you don't have money, it's you got to get the project done and gotta squeeze it in somehow.
You
And
can't
now
not do the project.
yeah,
You can see an unfinished project will kill you. That is the only thing that is unacceptable. You don't have the money, find the money. The moment you stop spending money on the real estate is the moment that you lose. I've seen it happen to many people. Keep the contractors working, keep the projects flowing. It's 11:30. I have an owner meeting to do. You guys, thank you for spending the extra half hour with us. This was super fun. I love all of you. Anyone has any questions, shoot me a DM on Instagram at Christian Osgood. If you want to reach out to these guys, this is Vlad Stinga, Ethan Wilson, Caleb Hommel. If anyone has questions for you, I'll connect them. And yeah, everyone have a great rest of your week. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, guys.
cheers. Thank you.